Senator Lindsey Graham is one of President Trump's closest allies on Capitol Hill. Earlier, I spoke with the South Carolina Republican about the president's recent reported comments about fallen American soldiers and about the senator's own reelection campaign. I want to ask you about something that I know is deeply personal to you. Reports that President Trump called American troops killed overseas, quote, losers and suckers. In 2015, you tweeted that the president had a lack of respect for those who serve and called it a disqualifying characteristic to be president. There are also reports that Mr. Trump called the late Senator John McCain a loser following his death in 2018. We know how closely your friendship with John McCain was beyond just politics, but actually a truly genuine friendship. You discussed some of the president's comments about McCain during an interview with our John Dickerson in August of 2018. I want to play that for our viewers real quick.
I am going to do everything I can to help President Trump, and when he's wrong, I will say so. It bothers me greatly when the president says things about John McCain. It pisses me off to no end, and I let the president know it. The way he's handled the passing of John was disturbing. We finally got it right. I am not going to give up on the idea of working with this president. The best way I can honor John McCain is help my country.
What could the president learn from John McCain?
What I would tell the president: you've got a lot of people you think are treating you unfairly. Fight back. But you're going to have to be a big man in a big office. John McCain was a big man, worthy of a big country. Mr. President, you need to be the big man that the presidency requires.
Senator, how angry were you when you read these most recent reports, and what do you think about the president's denials?
Okay, well, number one, let's break that down. In terms of what he said about John McCain, I don't like it. You know, John was a hero by any measure, stretch, and he got a funeral that he deserved, and the president, I appreciate him doing that. You know, John McCain's send-off was worthy of a great American, and to the president, thank you for doing that. He and the president did not agree. I mean, John McCain was no wallflower, so, you know, John took a lot of shots at Trump, and Trump hit back, and I think the bottom line here is that John McCain served his country in an extraordinary fashion. President Trump won, I lost. I want him to be successful. I can say this about the president. He called me the night, I think it was the night of when he was in France, that he couldn't go to the cemetery because they'd have to drive and it would throw the whole traffic patterns and chaos. And I said, are you going to go to another cemetery? He said, yeah, I'm going tomorrow. This came out 2 months before an election. I've been critical of the president at times, but I want him to be successful. I think he's done a good job as commander-in-chief, and I want the anonymous person to come forward because I don't buy this. I don't buy that the president has disparaged or did. I just don't believe that.
So do you think that the president has lived up to your advice to be the big man that the presidency requires?
I think he's been attacked unlike anybody that I can remember in the office. We can all do better, but let's look at this from a 30,000 point viewpoint. The military is stronger today than it's been since Ronald Reagan. The UAE and Israel are doing a peace treaty, the first new one with the Arab country in Israel in 26 years. Mexico is helping us secure our border unlike any time I can remember. The Northern Triangle countries that were sending caravans to our border are now working with us to improve their lives. We've got peace is breaking out in the Mideast. We've got the Taliban at the table for the first time in 20 years. China is being pushed back in an appropriate way. All I can say is that from my point of view, if you're a Ronald Reagan-type Republican, this president has delivered on foreign policy. He will be Donald Trump until his last breath. I know what I'm getting with President Trump in terms of personality. He's a street fighter, and he will fight. But from my point of view, I think he's done a good job of managing conflicts throughout the world. And the Mideast is different today than it was 4 years ago. And here's the key, I think. People are afraid of Trump, and he's willing to do deals that other people wouldn't do. I think the reason the Taliban are at the table is he's made it better for them to be at the table, not to be at the table. I think you see the Arab world having respect for Trump, standing up to Iran, and the Israelis and the Arabs see in President Trump an ally. They see in Iran an enemy. So he's actually brought people together. This theme of Trump, the peacemaker, is beginning to become real. And he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I can tell you this, if he were a Democrat and he'd done all these things, he would get it. The only reason he won't get it is because there's a bias against him throughout the world.
All right, Senator, finally, I want to ask you about your bid for a fourth term. You're facing a challenge from Jamie Harrison. He's a former state senator and former chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party. According to the Post and Courier, he's out fundraised you in the last few quarters. His poll numbers are nipping there at your heels, Senator. I'm wondering how you're feeling about this race. And do you feel overall like your relationship with the president has been helpful to your reelection efforts?
Well, number one, the president's going to win South Carolina, and I will too, because South Carolina is a structurally red state. We're smiling faces, conservative people, but it's a very pro-military state. And I can tell you this, the military is stronger today than any time since Ronald Reagan, and that's just a fact. That's not an opinion. I think people like the president stirring the pot up in Washington. There are a lot of things that are changing that needed to change. So I pay a lot of attention to my race. I am being outraised. My opponent may raise up to $75 million. Two things, Kavanaugh and Trump. Liberals sort of hate my guts because I stood in the way of their desire to destroy Kavanaugh. And I would just say this, Lana, I voted for Sotomayor and Kagan. Nobody would have listened to my response about Kavanaugh if I hadn't voted for Democratic nominees. I thought what they were doing to Brett Kavanaugh was really unconscionable. And I've been a proud supporter of the president. And at times I disagree on Syria, and other times I disagree. So I feel like I've got a healthy relationship with the president. I'll remind people what I have done for our state. I think when it comes to Lindsey Graham, the best is yet to come. I'm in a good spot in the Senate. So I've got to work hard to earn my reelection. I intend to do it. And when it's all said and done, South Carolina is not for sale, and I'll win.
All right. It sounds like we have a lot more to discuss. I look forward to the next time you come on, Senator Lindsey Graham. Thank you.
To be continued.